You're telling me that a single American would say, "Oh yeah, we'll give them a bit of land, whoever it is." No, you would come together and drive them out of your country.
Okay, and
by the way,
Russia has,
you'd want us to help you, which we would do.
Could we Google something? Russia has what, 50 times more people than Ukraine? You got to end this war, or it's going to be down to the last Ukrainian.
Right.
Putin has been reaching out to America. He was the first person to call after 9/11 to express his condolences to America. And Bush doesn't even call him back. We've just so dissed the Russians for such a long time. And the NATO thing, I'm sorry, I'm with Noam Chomsky, Pat Buchanan, George Kennan. Once the Soviet Union fell, there's no point to NATO. And we keep encroaching.
Well, actually, we're now seeing exactly what the point of NATO is.
Well,
which is to stop a murderous
Ukraine
dictator
England,
like Vladimir Putin.
Maybe.
That's what NATO's there for.
No.
If he tries to invade a NATO country...
All right, folks, you're in for a treat today. We've got Coulter wading into enemy territory on Piers Morgan Uncensored, and believe me, she's not just holding her ground. She's bulldozing through the woke narratives one by one. This panel tries their best to gang up on her with the same tired talking points about Ukraine, NATO, and global responsibility. But Anna isn't having any of it. So let's dive into this, break down how she dismantles their arguments with facts, logic, and a healthy dose of wit. Let's get into it.
He will get attacked.
It's not a NATO country. He doesn't want it to become a NATO country. And no, I'm sorry, the Ukraine was historically part of the Russian empire of influence. And I'm not defending Putin.
So you want the Soviet Union back?
No, I am not.
That's what you're saying.
Why? But let's get back to the main point. Why should Americans care about this? We have our own problems. Why should the British care about it? I mean, you guys... Well, I think it's a beautiful city, and I hope you save it. But you've just passed Brexit, a huge part of which was
I guess it's the same reason that when we... Okay.
And you have more immigrants coming in.
Okay.
I'm so glad
Let's not pivot to immigrants.
that your guy, Boris, is gone.
Right.
And hopefully the next one will actually fulfill the promises of Brexit. But how about doing something for the British
If I could get a word in
and the
edgeways, it'd be
American
appreciated. Here's my point to you. When we were attacked by the Nazis and when this city was attacked in the way that Ukraine city is being attacked, actually the Americans, when you were attacked at Pearl Harbor, realised it was a world war and you came and helped us win the war and defeat Nazis, or we'd always speak in German. And that's the reason why when you have a massive war in Europe like this, which is the biggest since World War II, that's why we should come together. And America, whether you like it or not, biggest superpower in the world, we need your help. Ukraine needs your help.
You can't compare everything to Hitler.
This is facts. I mean, comparing Putin to Hitler is the ultimate cop-out. It's the rhetoric equivalent of pulling the fire alarm in a crowded theater. Cheap, dramatic, and entirely unhelpful. Look, Putin is definitely no angel. But Hitler, that's a whole different league. This, everything I don't like is Hitler logic makes real debates impossible. It's like arguing that every bad storm is a hurricane. Sure, both involve rain, but the scale isn't even close. If we're going to have a serious conversation about world leaders and conflicts, let's leave the Hitler comparisons where they belong.
Okay,
actually, I can't compare Putin to Hitler. Yeah.
Okay, if Putin
Hitler
attacks
invaded
Pearl Harbor, I'll be interested. But he's not attacking the United States.
Ava, I see you've been listening to this with calmness.
Well, no, I don't know. I think you were just talking quite a lot of tripe, actually. But I mean, that's your thing. You know, when you talk about Russia. Putin not actually affecting the rest of the world. It's nothing to do with America. It's nothing to do with Britain.
Sorry for another pause, but I have to pause it here. Why are we constantly playing world police when our own countries are falling apart? I mean, like, look around. Crime is skyrocketing, our borders are wide open, and inflation is eating away at people's savings. But yeah, let's pour billions into Ukraine because why exactly? It's like your house is flooding and instead of fixing the pipes, you grab a bucket and head over to your neighbor's yard. I get it, geopolitics are complicated and there are ripple effects. But let's be real, our governments have mastered the art of solving everyone else's problems while ignoring their own. How about we flip the script for once?
Britain right now is facing a huge crisis in terms of grain. We physically can't get wheat into the country. This winter, we're looking at our energy bills are going to be something like £500 a month. It does affect us. It directly does affect us. But, we talk about globalization. Most of your products, probably half of what you're wearing, has come from different parts of the world. It's totally obscene to think that we're going to go back to some sort of FDR,
Why not Rwanda? What's going on in Swaziland? A lot of countries are having a lot of problems, and not all of your energy problems or grain problems are coming from the invasion.
Do you actually know that for fact,
your interview with him, I mean, I think the most disturbing point was, and I'm glad you asked him, Are you willing to give up anything here? And no, his position is...
Why should they give up anything?
Because, what, he's going to fight to the last dead Ukrainian?
Somebody invaded the United States. OK, if someone invaded America, any part of America, right? You're telling me that a single American would say, oh, yeah, we'll give them a bit of land, whoever it is. No, you would come together and drive them out of your country.
Okay, and
by the
Russia
way, you'd want us to help you, which we would do.
Okay, could we Google something? Russia has, what, 50 times more people than Ukraine? You got to end this war, or it's going to be down to the last Ukrainian.
All right, Esther.
Boom, that is the brutal truth right there, and nobody wants to admit it. The Western elites are treating Ukraine like a chess piece in their geopolitical game. Think about it. They keep sending weapons and money like it's monopoly cash, but what's the end goal? They say they're helping, but are they really? Or are they just prolonging the suffering to make themselves feel righteous? Imagine if your neighbor's house was on fire, and instead of putting it out, you just handed them a garden hose and said good luck. At some point, you have to ask, who's really benefiting from this never-ending conflict? And spoiler alert, it's definitely not Ukrainians.
I'm really speechless. But I think in this instance, I'm quite speechless. I think the international repercussions of what is happening in Ukraine cannot be understated. At the moment, the Russian foreign minister is in Africa because he realizes that, you know, people have forgotten this, but many Africans are dying with the rising cost of energy and wheat, for instance. Egypt, which is the largest importer of wheat, the price of wheat has gone up by 250%. I think it's irresponsible to think that what is happening in Ukraine isn't affecting everyone, including Americans. And it's only going to get worse. I mean, look, the US is trying to find a way around that at the moment, but I just don't understand how you can think this is not an American problem. It clearly is, and he's not going to stop at Ukraine. Moldova's next, then Lithuania, then Estonia, then Latvia.
Would you give it all back to him if he wants? He wants to restore the Soviet Union.
No, and I think
Vladimir, help yourself.
Far more preposterous than the idea that he's going to, I forget Pearl Harbor, that he's going to continue. Okay, when he continues, maybe we care. But you know what else affects the rest of the world? Whether the United States of America remains the United States of America. Why don't you guys come over and help us?
If we don't take care of our own country, there won't be an America left to help anyone else. Think about it. We've got crumbling infrastructure, broken schools, and political divisions so deep you could lose a truck in them. But instead of fixing these issues, our leaders are off playing international heroes. That's like being on a plane and instead of putting on your oxygen mask first, you're running around helping everyone else while you're gasping for air. America's strength comes from within. If we don't protect that, what's the point of anything else?
Build our wall. Why don't you help us deal with crime? Because you're right, we do step in. We send grain, food, we take out warlords. I mean, you guys do too. But America is mostly a force for good in the entire world, and our country is crumbling right now. So yes, everything has an effect. I'm not saying there's no effect and you can make your 6 degrees of separation. Saving the United States of America, and I think saving Britain, is more important than what is happening in Rwanda, Swaziland, or Ukraine.
OK, let's move on to the issue of the Tory leadership race, because actually whoever wins this race is going to have to make these kind of calculations. And there will be people in this country who also think we shouldn't be spending a lot of money on a war in Ukraine when we have so many problems here. And they may not do the points of detail which bring the things together and connect the dots here. From what you've seen of Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, who do you trust more of the two of them? One of them will be Prime Minister, to actually do the right calls on this kind of thing.
Whichever one employs Ben Wallace as their Defence Secretary, I think is the only one who's actually been holding it together. I don't think either of them have got a clue.
I don't think there's much disagreement there. I don't see any of them sort of getting rid of Ben Wallace. But I think it's clear that Rishi Sunak's campaign is in freefall. And I think the biggest issue he's had has been communication. Boris made a cheeky remark today that he suddenly found the money to cut VAT on energy bills, which he actually refused to do beforehand. And he hasn't really explained sort of his stance on why
he's kind of flip-flopping, isn't he? Yeah,
exactly.
It's going to be... Look, we've got 5 weeks left. I'm actually off from today. I'll be back on the day they announce the new Prime Minister. And I would say, at the moment, Liz Truss is playing a better political game.
Yeah.
That Rishi Sunak probably assumed he was going to win this quite easily. Not so easy now at all.
But it's two shades of the same colour, right?
Couldn't agree more. Whether it's Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak, it's like choosing between stale bread and moldy bread. Neither option is practically appealing. These politicians love to bicker about the details, but when it comes to actual solutions, nothing. It's the same story in the US. Our leaders are great at pointing fingers, but awful at making real change. And don't even get me started on the flip-flopping. One minute they're cutting taxes, the next they're raising them. It's like watching a dog chase its own tail. Entertaining at first, but eventually you realize it's going nowhere. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts or opinions down in the comments below. This is a place for discussion. Be sure to give us a like and subscribe. Really helps out the channel, and we'll see you guys in the next one.